Let's talk about how to set up your document. This one will be relatively quick. So if you're using Illustrator, you're going to go to File and New. You can choose Print. And over here on this side, what you're going to do is make sure that it's set to inches. Now I'm going to change this to 3.5 inches by 2 inches. And I'm going to make sure that this says 300 pixels per inch. I'm going to choose Create. So there is the document size. Now, one of the things that's tricky with this is actually a really small document. You'll notice on my computer screen, it's zoomed in almost 300%. That's how big the document is. So when you're zoomed way in, you're going to find that your font size is probably really small, and it's going to look totally readable. But as soon as you zoom out, it might not be readable. So be careful with that. Continually zoom in and zoom out. Now, if you decide in Illustrator you want to make additional documents, remember with your artboards, you can just add, click on artboard. You can just keep pressing the plus sign to add additional artboards. So this way, if you want to experiment with different layouts, you can. If you want to do a front and a back, you can. So you can have a ton of different layouts on here. I recommend really experimenting. Don't just make one, play around with it quite a bit. If you want to change the rotation, remember you can go to Properties and choose the Artboard tool. When you have the Artboard tool and Properties, this is where you can change from landscape to portrait. Now, when you come in here to type information in, I recommend go ahead and click once. Notice I'm changing my last name just to keep it private, but I'm keeping it about the same length and I'm starting it with the same initial. Then I'm just going to duplicate these and I'm going to put in the other information. Notice what I'm doing is I'm putting them in separate text boxes. Now, I'm starting out with just a plain default font. I do not want you keeping this Myriad Pro, but for now, I would say start first with the simple pieces. Put in your website address. And so on. You're going to want to place, now this is super important, if you're using your logo from Illustrator and you're in Illustrator, you can actually just copy it by highlighting it and copying it. When we get into InDesign, it's going to be a little bit different. That thing is giant. Shrink that down. I'm just going to leave this over in the pasteboard for right now. This is what I mean. I've barely put information in here. I haven't put my job title in. I haven't decided if I want to use, I haven't put my email address in here. You're going to run out of space pretty quickly. That's why I recommend, man, having a second page. Oh, that's glorious. You can totally do stuff. Now, if you decide you want to include a photo in here, this is how you need to put a photo in when you're using Illustrator. You're going to go to File, Place. You're not copying and pasting a photo. You can copy and paste Illustrator files inside of Illustrator, but you can't copy and paste a photo. It will not work right. So I'm going to go here and I'm going to grab this rusty texture that I did. But here's the key part. Watch this. Click on Options. You want to make sure that link is turned off. We're going to place this and do what's known as embedding the file. I'm going to click and drag. I can make it bigger. And if you need help in masking it off, just let me know. I'll show you how to do a clipping mask. I'm going to take this, I'm going to arrange and send this to the back. Now I'm just experimenting and playing around with the photo, and that might be too much, but that's why I want to experiment. So you're going to place the photo in there, just make sure that when you're doing the place, you've got to turn off the options on and you've got to turn off link. All right, that is how you'll set up your Illustrator one. Now, if you were doing InDesign, you're going to do the same thing with setting this up, but let me show you that part. Inside of InDesign right here, you're going to go File, New, Document. I'm going to change it to inches. You're going to change this to 3 inches. You'll notice it's very similar. It should be 3.5 by 2. Very similar to the setup and the layout that Illustrator had. The key difference is, notice this pink line. This pink line is super annoying. That is not where you're designing. It has to do with the preset margin. So if you come up to layout and you go to margins and columns, we can actually change that to 0 and it'll disappear. Now, if you want additional pages, you have your pages panel. You can make multiple pages there, although it kept the margin, so I'm just going to highlight all of those. Change that to 0. And then if I want to rotate, I can use the page tool. Oh no, I made it disappear. Let me fix that. Pages. Let me reset my workspace. There we go. So over here in the tools, you have your pages panel, or your pages tool, which is this one right there. You can just change it. So now that one is landscape. Now, when you're going to place a picture in here, remember you have to place it in a frame. So what you're going to do, my recommendation would be go ahead and draw out whatever frame you want first. And then with that frame still selected, go to File and Place. And with this one, you don't have to change any settings. What you're going to do is just going to place it. And then if you're going to use your Illustrator file, what you can do is you can also do File and Place. Or if you're able to have both Illustrator and InDesign open, that won't work on Cameo, but it will work this way. If I go in and I find where I have my Illustrator file, so I have my final logo here, I can now go in and place that. May have to make modifications and stuff to it a little bit, but right there, that's how I can get the text in there. Now, as far as putting your name and all that information, again, make a separate text box. Snap that into place. I'm going to duplicate. Just holding down the Option key and on a Mac, Alt key on a PC. I'm going to do the same thing and so on. Then you can duplicate the pages once you've got the text on there. So whichever program you use, whether it's whether it's Illustrator or InDesign, that's the basic structure of how I would set stuff up. As always, if you have questions on specifics, just let me know.